Physical life has no meaning, and so there is no intrinsic reason we should desire life or protect it. This conclusion is considered disturbing or frightening for people who think pulling air into their lungs and engaging in the task of grinding and swallowing a particular kind of matter called food is an important and perhaps a meaningful activity. But why do people think it important that they continue to live, if they are an animal? Why do so many of us feel the time and effort required to sustain life is time well spent, if we are just physical objects? Living makes sense, until we meet someone who thinks life has no meaning. It can be difficult to give people who have given up on life a good reason for living. On a less dramatic level, we know people who spend time and energy on things that seem to us an absurd waste of time. The absurdity of an action is only countered by a decision to make it significant. Only the individual can decide if his or her life is meaningful. A very large number of people feel having children is rewarding and important. They cannot provide empirical evidence for their claim, however. And so, we give meaning to life even if others do not think what we are doing is meaningful. But external events can without warning remove all the meaning from the life we had. The death of a child can be devastating for parents. The lives of the parents often revolve around the life of the child. If the child gives your life meaning, what meaning does your life have, if the child is taken from you? What is a better statement about the meaningless of life than murder? Imagine all the things people think important taken from them in one meaningless act. That is murder. If life has no meaning, why destroy it? If life has no meaning, what meaning is there in murder? Does taking a life give meaning to the life of the murderer? If life has meaning, how can anyone justify murder? Perhaps the problem is trying to give meaning to our life, when the purpose of life is to give meaning to the life of others. Life has no meaning in and of itself. Some life is not worth living. Perhaps the meaning of life is to give those lives that lack meaning some meaning. Losing a child is traumatic, but can a child give meaning to life? There is sympathy for parents who lose their child, but for a parent to make the child responsible for the meaning of life is unfair. A child or lover cannot give someone else's life meaning. No one is responsible for giving your life meaning. But you can give meaning to the life of someone else. You have no claim on anyone, and they are not responsible for giving your life meaning. When a life loses meaning, a person may turn to drugs and porn as a diversion. Addictions serve to highlight the absurdity and meaningless of life. Why be addicted to something? Does the craving give life meaning? Does waking up in the morning desperate for a fix make your life purposeful? Does having to give in to the craving mean there is something meaningful in your life? But as said, the purpose of life is to give meaning to life. It is the life without meaning that is absurd, because a life that is without meaning has no meaning, and that is absurd. There must be meaning to life, otherwise it could not be lived. But what is something with meaning, compared to the same thing without it? What is missing in the latter example? The search for meaning may give life meaning. But the scale must be appropriate to the individual. One human being cannot end world hunger. Individuals contribute to ending poverty when we work. Even if we farm or package food, we are helping end world hunger. A job has meaning when it is a meaningful job. But what makes a job meaningful? Meaning is given by the value of the activity. Raising a child gives life meaning when the life of the child has value. If one does not see the life of the child as something of value, then the work of raising the child will not give meaning to your life. A ditch dug just to earn a paycheck will not have the same value as digging an irrigation ditch for people you want to help grow feed. Meaning is not divorced from value. It is the thing with value that has meaning. Meaning is attached to value. It is the value of a thing that defines its value. The person who does nothing useful and freeloads off of others will not find life meaningful. Freeloaders do not add value and cannot create meaning. In fact, a freeloader destroys the source of meaning. Value is not something created in isolation or dogmatically. We cannot demand what we do have meaning or value. If what we do has no relevance to the community, it ultimately will not have value for us. To have meaning, the activity must be given meaning, by making it relevant to the community. This is the most difficult step for a society to make. If the value of what we do is determined by what it does for the family, the community can function at the level of subsistence. But progress requires we find meaning in what we do for the community. Here we hit upon the problem of creating economic development. In another sense, creating economic development could be considered the problem of creating meaning in a community. Economists claim barter is a hindrance to economic development. It is said that barter is too constraining. We cannot, for example, trade a dozen eggs for a cow. But this fails to acknowledge a much deeper problem. Those who barter and who live in subsistence cultures do not trust one another. That is why they barter. The bartering is a symptom of the problem, not the problem. The problem is fear, which is the antithesis of faith. The need to reduce exposure to risk suppresses the level of investments a person will make. It is possible for someone to specialize somewhat in something that can be made as a type of handcraft, but no one is likely to create complex industries which are subject to graft and petty theft, if faith is absent. The fear of others means we take out bank loans and buy insurance. We do not trust our neighbors to lend them money nor to help us rebuild our damaged home after we help them build theirs. Insurance and banks and government itself is a way to function in a complex society even though we do not trust our neighbor. We have no faith. People talk about the meaning of life, but this would not be a discussion we would have if we created the meaning of life for ourselves. The hermit could as easily find meaning as a missionary. Everyone would create meaning out of what they wanted to do. The problem for modern man is that there is no meaning that is physical. Meaning is spiritual. No amount of living in the flesh will give life meaning. To live in the spirit is to live in a life with meaning. The meaning of life is found in community. It is found in the part we play in the church. We cannot have success and live a meaningless life. It is the absence of meaning that causes some of us to reject society. But it is not the responsibility of society to give our lives meaning. But this is something parasites never learn. Meaning is found in a community setting, or what might be better called a church. This is why the church needs to be a mission. The church is a meaning-creating organization. The meaning of the church is the mission of the church. The mission exists to give meaning to life by giving people a way to create meaning.